Time is produced by John DeSando. Listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Mindy Mcfann.
And this is It's Movie Time.
Sure enough.
It's time for Jesus.
Yes, it is.
Oh boy.
Yes, it is.
Now you and I go to a reasonably excellent church.
I would agree with that.
St. John's of the United Church of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're very happy, particularly with our pastor.
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant and yet down to earth.
And progressive.
Now, Mindy, honk for Jesus, save your soul. What the heck is it? Why am I thinking Jimmy's? Why do I think of James, Jim, and Jimmy, and Swagger, and
Oh, yes.
and Baker? Am I wrong to be thinking that
Well,
way?
no, yeah. It's when the show becomes the church, you know? And it is, I mean, it is a show to some degree. I mean, you're standing up in front of an audience.
You know, that's true, and I've always felt that way. If people don't understand that part of this is show business, is entertainment, then they miss the point.
Mm-hmm.
The people are there not only to get some spiritual uplifting, they're also there to socialize and to enjoy.
Well, and you tend to listen to somebody who's not boring you. I mean, it's just human nature, I guess.
So, Director George Miller. Director George Miller.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we know him from Mad Max.
Yeah. This is a little different.
What makes this different?
Well, it's a kind of a fake mockumentary, documentary kind of thing that they're shooting about these two, a preacher and his wife, and their fall from grace, as it were. And there's a documentary going as they're doing it.
Yes, hoping that they can rehab them so that they can come back again on Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
The figurative part of that is clear. They're coming back.
Yeah.
And we have two very fine actors.
Yeah, they were wonderful.
Regina Hall.
Mm-hmm. She was great.
Plays the First Lady.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Pastor Childs, played by...
Sterling Brown?
Sterling K. Brown.
Yeah.
What about those two?
Yeah, I mean, I know him from This Is Us, I think it was called.
That's
the
correct.
show, and he's a really great actor. This
Yes.
is a complete turn for him because it's so campy, the part he plays. And I think he does a great job. I did not find the movie as humorous as I think it was meant to be.
Who labeled this a comedy?
I don't know.
Could you please tell me?
No, I found it just very sad. I just, there was a couple amusing moments, and you know, maybe that's, I mean, I've gone to a black church. I mean, I used to belong to a black church, so I'm not completely ignorant of the cultural aspects of the church and your crown you wear to church and all that kind of thing. But I just find it very heart-wrenching.
So he is involved in a scandal.
Yes.
All right, and it's with young men.
Well, they don't get real specific about the details, but it kind of unfolds.
Oh yeah.
That is the presumption.
Right, and so he's involved in trying to pay them off. I think there are at least 4 of them, young men. That, and naturally, this is just decimating the church.
Yeah, well, they got down to from 25,000 to 5 members. The 5 members were the funniest part because they fit such stereotypes. It was very funny.
Part of this, as we opened up, is really the glitz and that we saw, I think, with some of our Jimmies, that we saw them excessively buying automobiles, homes, and in this one, I think clothing is really the motif.
Oh, yes, it is. He had a rainbow of clothes. I mean, they were all arranged by color, and it's just so many clothing. It would take me a year to figure out what to wear in the morning.
I love when the camera shows the shoes, which are like all snakeskin and an alligator.
Yep.
I mean, holy.
Everything was just as flamboyant as possible. And you see, I mean, you see, at least I did in them, how so many people aspire to things, and then you don't do a check along the way if you're still becoming who you wanted to be, you know, and you could just see the opulence and then the justification of it, and it just how it seemed to overwhelm them.
So I'd like to ask you, you've not been at class, at Bible class for a while, but this last volume was talking about the prosperity gospel. Do you
Right.
know what that is?
Yes, it's weird, that's what it is. It's just weird.
And this is an example, this film is an
Yes,
example of
yes.
that. And can you explain a little bit, well, at least what you know?
Well, there's a payoff for doing right.
Yeah, okay,
You
right,
know,
yeah.
that there's a payoff for doing right, and I don't know how that came from some guy in sandals in the desert. I
It does
don't
not-
see how
right,
that clicks.
right. So if you do good,
Mhm.
good will come to you.
In
And-
cash.
And how many times have you also heard, it's the Lord's will?
Mm-hmm.
It's all the same kind of thing, as if there's some kind of predestination about it, as if there's some kind of a reward,
Yes.
as if this were some kind of transaction between you and the Lord.
Well, you know, without being anti-American, it is a very American idea to think that the payoff of things and money is going to bring you joy. It's going to bring you happiness. Because I think most people, at least in my experience, when you get the money, you realize none of your problems went away, none of your personal issues go away, and it adds a lot of misery because you have a whole different kind of responsibility of things. Like with your kids, that you have to be very conscious about what you do and don't let them do, whereas if you don't have money, it kind of takes care of itself.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's a huge burden of prosperity. So
Yes.
I don't see that God would want me to have a burden. He wants me to be free.
Right, and the pastor admits to their riches,
Mm-hmm.
and in fact saying, you can be like me.
Yep. He talks about his planes, they have, I don't know how many cars, and they were fancy kinds, so I didn't know what they were, but
Yes.
very expensive stuff. And I think that's, the hope of that is a lot of what they were selling.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, especially to a lot of maligned people who haven't had the payoff for their work.
Yes.
So I get that, but then you see how miserable they are.
And I'm wondering, Mindy, I always wonder, how do these congregations let them get away with it? So it takes what, a scandal to dethrone them? And
I don't know, other than maybe part of what they're selling is safety.
Yeah.
And people still think, I mean, having money to pay your bills is safe, no doubt. But having copious amounts of money, I don't think is necessarily buys you safety and comfort. Maybe power, but I don't know that power makes you feel too great. Unless it's power to pick your life
Yes.
and to choose your destiny. That I understand.
Yeah.
But you see how he had to subvert himself and how she had to subvert herself to make this work. And it was very sad.
Well, on their way back to looking forward to Easter Sunday when they would be reviving
Mhm.
their ministry,
Mm-hmm.
she goes to buy some clothes, and one of the things she buys is a hat.
Yeah.
And this hat is upwards of $3,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
It almost looks like that Mickey Mouse hat
Yeah.
with sequins on it.
Yeah. And crowns are important. I mean, they are. I understand what her motivation was, because a hat, especially in church, is so representative of you're doing well.
Yeah, right, your status.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And he shoots her down.
yeah.
He humiliates her repeatedly.
Yeah.
Which
Somebody
you know,
should do the same thing to him.
Yeah.
Now, her progression, her arc, do
Mhm.
you see any change in coming over her? I'm thinking now of what we saw in Tammy Faye, the eyes of Tammy Faye.
See, that's where I think the movie was underdeveloped, because I don't think it ever got to that point. Because I would have liked to have seen, I saw a little bit of her anger and resentment
Yes,
toward him,
yes.
but it didn't really get her anywhere, other than she kept pushing it aside and she kept marshaling on. I mean, I thought that there's a moment with her in Mime Face, which I guess is a thing I didn't know about that they do in churches. And just the whole idea of him finally getting to the point where he shut her up. She put her makeup on her face and he just shut her up. And that I just thought was so sad, especially in context of how black women has so stood by black men and fought for them and stood by their side, and all of that, and he was cruel to her.
Yes, yes.
And he finally just shut her up.
I thought it was also a commentary on the old blackface shows, the minstrel shows. So you kind of reverse it. So you have the black person with the white face rather than the white person with the black face. But it still was humiliating, and she was carrying it on with, well, it led me to believe that she bought into the same way I had with Tammy Faye. Is that how do you not know? And what do you want? Well, she wanted to be the first lady. And
well, it's not just that. I mean, there's a huge amount of pressure been put on black women through time to keep the whole world together.
Yes, yes.
I mean, that was her job.
Yes.
No matter what, she was supposed to keep it together, keep her marriage together, keep the community together, just all of that poured upon her. And it was like, it was such a repeat in her head that to even question that made everything fall apart.
Yes.
And that's why I wish I knew why they didn't have kids, and there's all kinds of things.
I really like your word underdeveloped. And I thought in particular in her case, we had so much going on with her.
Yeah.
But she's soldiering on in that tradition, I think, where you keep things together, and you're absolutely right. And you say to yourself, when, honey, are you going to actually see what's going on here and admit that it's corrupt?
Yeah, I mean, he put her on a street corner.
I know, oh
I
my
mean, he
God.
put her on a street
Yes,
corner,
I know.
you know, and told her to dance around and stuff. I mean, it's really, I guess that was hard for me to laugh at.
Yeah, yeah. The twirling signs.
Yeah,
Just as if it were some kind of a pizza joint.
yeah,
That they're out there on the highway.
yeah.
And she is carrying on with a amount of dignity that even the circumstances wouldn't even call for.
Absolutely.
And she does.
Absolutely. Well, and her mother,
Oh,
you know,
I knew you, I was thinking the same
drives
thing.
it home to her that this is what you're supposed to be
Oh
doing.
my gosh, mother living very well, I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah,
And the two of them have lunch, very fine little scene.
yeah, yeah,
Which mom lets her know, this is what you do until you bury him.
yeah.
He says, how'd you put up with it? He said,
But
I buried him.
Yeah, that's the baggage. That's the baggage that she carried.
All right, Mindy Mcfann.
Yes.
Now, people can go to our podcast, Backtalk, if they go to the WCBE, the podcast experience.
Yes, I can.
But right now, and in fact, we're going to talk about the other couple in this movie. But right now, what do you advise our audience?
Go and learn something. I mean, there's a lot of things that you may have never experienced, and if you have any suspicion of certain religions, well, this is quite a little backstory education.
Yeah, they don't hit you over the head. It's quite interesting. It's quite an opulent movie itself.
Yeah.
And it's called
Honk for Jesus. I don't remember the subtitle.
Save Your Soul.
Save your soul. There you go. All you have to do is honk.